They said the ridge could eat a storm. Not in a metaphor, literally swallow lightning and make the dark taste like metal. On nights when clouds stacked like mountains, the stones lit from within, jars in the earth snapped with blue tongues, and the tribe opened their mouths and breathed in the thunder. Travelers called them myths. Miners called them mad. But the ruins left marks you can't argue with. Sand vitrified into glass tubes, posts blackened from the crown down, clay sealed with resin that still smells like pine after rain. This wasn't worship. It was appetite, learned, disciplined, and dangerous. They named themselves by a sign no voice can speak, a hand drawn with branching scars. The people of the branch didn't bow to the sky. They calibrated it. They planted meteor iron spikes along the ridge, storm teeth, and braided brine-soaked fibers through the ground toward fields of sealed jars. When the world flickered, those teeth sang and the jars drank. That charge didn't light palaces, primed life. With it, they stunned shoals in shallow weirs, burned rot from water with a hiss of ozone, jolted a breath back into a drowning hunter. They learned what animals already knew. Storms don't just kill, they feed. But if you build a mouth for thunder, you need a throat that never clogs. One dry season, the tracks of the storms shifted. The callers still called. The jars still waited. The field ripened empty. And then a single black cell tore across the plain and didn't break. An arc walked the ridge as if it had learned their paths. The ring at the heart shattered outward. After that, the stones stopped drinking. The tribe left no bodies. Only a line of alcoves cut downriver, and a last glyph. An open hand letting the lightning fall through. So the question the ridge keeps asking under your boots is simple and brutal. If a people learned to feed on lightning, what did they starve when the sky refused them? And what hunger follows you when the thing that saved you become? Start with the law carved at the first threshold. Follow the sky nerve before you follow the river. That's the map, storms first, water second. The ridge sits above marshes where electric fish flash like living sparks in black water. Farther upslope, veins of rusty stone bleed hints of iron. Someone here understood ingredients. Resin to seal, salt to carry, iron to bite, clay to hold. They didn't need words like capacitor or field. They needed patterns. Hair lifting before thunder. Tongues tasting copper on air. The way amber warms in a palm and plucks ash to itself. They made a school from those sensations. Picture the storm fields. Lines of posts crowned with meteoritic nodules march the ridge like a jaw. Between them, braided palm fibers soaked in brine snake toward terraces of clay. Jars double-walled and lacquered with tree sap. Inner surface blackened with charcoal, outer surface packed with damp soil. A quill pierces each resin seal, tied to a hammered leaf of copper or pyrite inside. When lightning searches for an exit, the tallest teeth offer themselves. The brine ropes bleed the charge sideways, and the jars receive it in a quiet cascade of blue. At dawn, the lids crackle when touched. Under the lids, water that doesn't smell like rot, salt drawn out to the rim, and a sting on the lip that tells you the storm paid. They called the biggest storms feasts. Whole village moving as one. Weirs reset, eel channels opened. Fermented mash stirred under a gentle shock that wakes yeasts fast. Elders held a reed rod with a strip of hide at the end. Press to a chest, count heartbeats, let the blue nibble and step away. The child coughs and cries. The rod is lifted like a prayer that didn't ask permission. None of this is magic. It is attention plus hunger, braided into a method. To outsiders, the ridge was a shrine. To the tribe, it was a pantry and a clinic. And like all pantries and clinics built on weather, it demanded humility. The law at the second threes. The twist isn't that they gathered lightning. It's that they tuned it. Walk the ridge in a straight line and you miss the pattern. Climb a duneside and look down. The posts form arcs that echo the shape of storms that usually grow here. The brine ropes make spirals around depressions lined with lime and ash, grounding pits that drink the bite. Jars aren't scattered. They're banked in rows like lungs. Each lung feeds a different task. Clear water, shock weirs, healing rod, seed stir. On a good season, the city breathes with the sky. Charge in, life out. But near the heart, the stone tells a different story. One ring is blown outward as if detonated by a breath held too long. Fulgurites are thicker here, multiple strikes kissing the same path, and carved into a slab half-melted. A new symbol, two storm teeth connected by a taut line. A harp? Not for ears, for clouds. The callers. The elders say in echoes, were tension cords drawn between high teeth, thin metal singing when the field thickened. You don't ask thunder to visit. You make the road to your door too smooth to resist. If you've ever stood in air that prickles, you know how a body becomes antenna. Imagine hundreds of bodies amid taut chords, jars primed, the sky low and black, the field rising like a tide. Then the maps change. Wind shears the storm, but the callers keep calling. Charge pools without relief. One arc jumps early, walks the line, finds the jars already full, leaps pit to pit, and the whole heart ring goes white. You can hear this with your eyes. Vitrified stones sang and then fell silent. And there's a darker suspicion scratched in a tunnel wall, eel glyphs mapped to a human spine. Maybe the tribe learned to route living current into bodies to cure, to test, to pass rites. Eat the storm, one line says, or the storm eats you. When the feast came wrong, who got devoured? If this were just a failure story, it would end at the broken ring. Instead, a second layer runs downriver. Alcoves cut in the cliff face, each no deeper than a hand. Aim at a thin slice of sky. On stormless days, a faint pull moves past them anyway. It's not wind. It's the promise of a field, the ghost of charge migrating where the air is always wetter, closer to the mouths of the rivers. The tribe planned for that drift. They carved a storm road, a sequence of markers that teach a body to feel what instruments would later measure. When the tongue stings, when hair lifts, when skin hums. This is survival as training. Take the school with you. Their tools were humble, their insight arrogant in the best way. Amber rods rubbed with wool and chalk dust became field readers. When the dust leapt, seeds were shocked. Small jars wired in series, lids opening and closing rhythmically as a storm book of beats. 1 2 rest, 1 2 3. An index learned by children like song. Grain sprouted earlier after a night in the hum. Water kept longer if it kissed a lid that hissed. The eel weirs downstream changed too, channels narrowed. Reeds fixed with bone pins to guide fish into conductive baskets. No need for the sky every day when the marsh can lend its pulse. Some rites were harsh. Scars in a spiral across shoulders and arms. Breath held while a reed rod tapped the sternum. 3 small bites to bring rhythm back after drowning. Thunder brings, a phrase repeats along steps. But we must hold. They learned to store not only charge but courage. Because the deeper truth etched by the last stones is simple. Lightning isn't theirs. It isn't anyone's. You can invite it or meet it, but you cannot keep it. The tribe's greatest design wasn't the jar. It was the exit. The storm road ends not in a wall but at a mouth of black water where fog walks in every dawn. Eel country rich with living current. The ridge taught appetite. The river taught patience. At the last alcove, a final law cuts through lichen. An open hand, a branching line, and a circle broken at the top. The gloss reads itself if you've listened long enough. Release what moves through you. The people of the branch didn't vanish by accident. They refused to become a museum to a storm that had changed its address. They unlashed the collars, buried the teeth, lifted the smallest jars and the recipes for feeling, and walked the storm road until the air itself told them to stop. Where fog feeds river and river breeds lightning in flesh, they built quiet. Feeding on lightning didn't mean hoarding arcs. It meant learning where life sparks easiest and choosing to live there. And the broken ring back on the ridge? Was it a battle, a mistake, a final lesson? The silence it created has a purpose. Keeps zealots from rebuilding a mouth that can't swallow the new sky. It makes you earn your storm. If you want what they had, you can't strip the ruins and wire them to your wants. You have to train your body to read the weather's nerve. You have to accept that the feast arrives when it chooses, and leave when the table is empty. So here's the dare, carried on a faint bite of metal in the air before rain. If the grid went dark and the horizon flashed, what could you build from resin, salt, clay, and nerve? Could you harvest a storm without becoming its prisoner? Would you know when to ride the river to where the charge lives now? The tribe that fed on lightning left you a map you can't fold. Only feel. Follow it with respect, or the next thunder will take more than your breath. If the story jolted something under your skin, stay with us. There are other ridges, other roads, and other ways the past hid survival intelligence in plain sight, waiting for the first hair on your arm to rise.